Hi, I'm Kyle with DIY Auto Homeschool, and today we're here with this 2003 Chevrolet Suburban, which you may recognize because I just made a video for the replacing the U-joints on it, and I literally just finished making that video like 20 minutes ago. So the other complaint with this vehicle that we had to address is the rear brakes, and it was a grinding noise, and the noise was coming from the rear brakes. And I'll show you on the driver's side where the pad had gone down thin enough that it started running the backing plate from the pad into the rotor. And once that happens, you know, you need to replace the rotor and basically do a brake service on it with replacing the rotor. So that's why we're going to be putting rotors on this today. We're not turning them. In some cases, I would imagine if you caught it right as soon as it started to touch metal to metal, you might be able to turn it, but for the most part, if you've gone metal to metal, you're going to be replacing the rotors. It's better off to do that. So let's go ahead and get this up. Just so you know, this same process should work on anything from, I think, about 2000 up to maybe 06 or 07, 06 Chevrolet Suburban, Tahoe, and the pickups as well. The pickups that have disc brakes on the rear, all those vehicles, if they have disc brakes on the rear, because this does have discs. So let's go ahead and get the back end of this jacked up and get started. Okay, so to pull the wheels off on these, the first thing you need to do is you use a 3/8, you use a ratchet if you need to, but these bolts you see, they're not bolts, they're just plastic covers that hold the hubcap on here, and you just spin them a little bit. They're 22, the same as the lug nuts, and then once you loosen them all up, that cover comes off with all the dirt on it that comes from living on a dirt road. And get the impact, and we'll zip the wheel off. Okay, so like I said, there we go. Where is it? Right there. 22 millimeters. A lot of the Chevy trucks are 22 millimeters. You're gonna be loud for just a second. I'm gonna bust these loose real quick. So all I really needed to do was bust them loose, because now I can take my little 3/8, and I would usually just use the 1/2 inch, but with being on video, I know that thing's really loud and, you know, annoying. Oops. So, and another tip I've covered in another video, I'll show you when we go back on, but these are the super awesome kind of lug nuts that when you go to put them on, you don't have to start them by hand first. You can just run them on and start them, because they've got that reduced shank there that lines the threads up. It's nearly impossible to cross thread them. So I just used the little hubcap that came off as a holding spot for the lug nuts, and this one just came right off. But sometimes you gotta kind of smack the wheel or smack the tire up top or on the inside and the back. But the tire comes off and goes out of the way. And I did this one first because I wanted you to see. Let me zoom in and I'll show you. So this is where I said it had just started to touch. You can see this little patch right here. See how this is real reflective and shiny, and that's all kind of scratched up and messed up. That's where this pad has gotten low enough that it is starting to run metal on metal, and the back feels like it is all the same. Listen. Hear that? That's no bueno. That's not how we want it to be. These rear brakes are very, very much like a lot of their front disc brakes. There's two bolts, one right here and right here, and we're going to pull those bolts off, and that will let the caliper come off. And then we'll take the caliper and we'll set it up out of the way, and then this bracket right here has two bolts back here that you can take off, and then that lets the bracket come out. And at that point we need to take the slides, we need to clean them up, we need to lubricate them, we need to clean up this hardware. Typically I like to replace the hardware. I didn't pick up the parts for this one. I don't know if he got pads that had hardware in it. We'll see. Worst case scenario, I may have to run to the parts store and get it, because I really, if I can clean up these little metal inserts, and I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get it off and get it on the bench, if I can clean them up, then it's okay. But I really, really, really like to put new ones on, because it just, in my mind, makes it better. But good news is, you see this, the rotor is already loose, which means that's one of our big battles out of the way. So let's go ahead. I'm going to try to shift the camera around, and I'm trying to show you where these bolts are on the back that you're going to take off. Now this first one looks like it's going to be a 13 millimeter, so let me grab that. Okay, so here's the caliper, and this is where the bolt is. I thought it was a 13, but it's a 12 is what it is. So I'll try to shift you around here to the back and show you right here is where it's at. And it's going to be a little bit of work to get a ratchet in. You got to kind of come down from the side, because this control arm up here is in the way. So let me set the camera down out of the way and see if I can show you taking that off. Okay, so hopefully you don't fall there. But anyway, so this is the bolt on the top. We're just going to come in here, 12 millimeter. And we're gonna, oh, there we go. My goodness, that was fun, wasn't it? And once it's broken loose, it'll just spin right out. There we go. And let's try to show you the bottom one here. Okay, so there you are. And let's go ahead and get that bolt all the way out. Alright, so remember, it's okay for me to be under the vehicle, because I have my jack stands in place. I would not recommend getting underneath the vehicle if you do not have it supported by jack stands. So after we've done that, let's shift this around so you can see better. Okay, so the caliper is loose and you want to take it off, especially since we're replacing the rotor. It's not as big of a deal. We've got this little wire piece in place, but what you want to do is you want this to be able to come off, so you may have to come in here and catch the front edge of the rotor and pry the body of the caliper this way just a little bit, and that gives it a little extra space to go against the to push the piston back in. And it doesn't take a whole lot, just a little bit. And you see how it kind of flexed there? It doesn't take much, just a little bit of room, and then pull that off. And see, what you were doing is when you were prying is you were opening up this area more. You were pushing these two pistons back into the caliper. Now this gives you enough room that you can take this caliper and set it up there. That hose isn't stressed. It's not. This caliper is super light. It's not an old cast iron caliper. So it's perfectly fine. You don't want to hang it by the hose, even on one like this, but it's not the end of the world to set it up out of the way. Let me show you that real quick. See, I've just got it set, balanced up here. This caliper is super light, and it is not a big deal to do that. So here's the pads. We'll pull them out if they want to come out. we may just do that after. There we go. You see here where it's started to grind that little section of the backing plate into the rotor? Junk. And there, it's messed up the rotor. And this one feels worse. Look at what it has done. It is all bad. Guys, don't wait till your brakes look like this to have them done. There's no need. There's just no need. So, next we're going to take this bracket off, and I believe, well, watch me be wrong again, I believe they're 21s. No, they're not. I don't think. Nope, they're probably 18s. Okay, so 18s, yep. I get my, it's been a while since I've done these brakes. So they're 18mm heads, and I'll try to show you where they're at, but it's gonna be tough to try to show you and get them done, loosened up at the same time. But I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. So, again, for reference, here's the caliper bracket. We're gonna go back down behind it. I'm gonna show you right here where I got this socket at. That is one of the bolts, and then the other one is right here. And you take these two bolts out, and then this bracket comes off. So let's do that. To get them broken loose, I'm gonna use my breaker bar. These are no fun. No fun at all. Not even in the slightest. I'm gonna have to move you guys, I think. Okay. There we go. Alright. First one broken loose. Now, a lot of these bolts, they put this obnoxious, like, I think yellow or weird color Loctite on. And so it's just a pain. Whew. Got them both moving. To get them broke loose, and even once you break them loose, to pull them all the way out. Let me move you guys back over a little here because I got room now. But yeah, once you break them loose, even then sometimes it's a pain to run them out. One. Oh my goodness. Two. And here's the caliper bracket, right? So we'll take this in, we'll get it prepped and ready. And once we do that, and we pull this rotor off, and just a quick tip, I can tell you, this has already been off. Right around here on one of these, there, one or two of them, there would have been a little metal flat washer, kind of retaining clip they use when they put these on from the factory. They put the rotors on and then they slide those on. They kind of help lock them in place, or so I've been told. That's what happens. Anyway, and you have to cut them off or take them off, whatever. And you don't usually put them back on because there's no need to. But they're missing, so this has been apart before. It may have been me. I may have forgotten too. I don't know. But here is the rotor. And this is a drum. That's funny. Look at that. You got drum brakes inside your disc brakes. This is the parking brake back in here. That's what the drum, there's a drum surface on the inside of that rotor is for. This is the parking brake. So this is completely apart now. What we're going to do is, oh my goodness, look at that. Look at what that did to that rotor. Oh my gosh. Don't do this to your brakes, people, please. Anyway, so what we're going to do is clean up some of this stuff. Maybe dust it off a little. the new rotors are going to go on. We're going to spray all the cosmoline off of the new rotors. It's a rust inhibitor, and you don't want that stuff getting in your pads and heated up and melted into it. So we're going to clean the rotor completely off. It's got rust inhibitors, because who knows how long it's going to sit in that box. Then when that goes back on and we get this bracket prepped with new, or the slides all cleaned up and ready to go and put back on here, then the pads will be on it. Then we'll open the caliper back up, put the caliper back on, and by the time we're done servicing this, new rotor, all that back on, this will be completely serviced rear brake system. I mean, except for the other side, we'll get to that. But and it will be good to go, and it will last you a long time. So let's go look, because this right here, this is the key. This is what nobody ever does. No, I hate seeing it. People come on here, they flip the rotors up, they pull pads out, they throw new pads in, they flip the caliper up, they pull the pads out, they put new pads in, they flip the caliper back down, open it up a little bit, clamp it back down, and then they say, hey, good, I did brakes, it took me 20 minutes. No, sir. No, ma'am. Nope, that's not how we do it. Let's go look at what we do. Would you look at this? It's like I just did new joints here or something. Get this nonsense out of the way. So, the reason I've got a video on brake service, and I'll link it right up here, probably about right there. Why we do this is because there's more to brakes than just pads on rotors or shoes on drums. There's more to it than that. And if you don't address all of the points of the brake system and make sure that it can slide and move, or the caliper can slide and move the way it needs to, then you might as well not be doing anything, really, because you're not doing anything. So, here we go. Let's flip this around so maybe the camera can see it. I tell you what, I gotta get used to this. Alright. So, let's adjust you here a little. So, as you can probably see, right here is this metal clip, this insert. And what this is this sets on here, and it acts as the surface that the pads slide on. As you notice, we pulled the pads right out of this. The top edge sits down inside there. We're gonna try to save this right now, just in case. I don't know if we have new hardware. I hope we do. If we don't, I may just go get it. Anyway, and then bottom one. Let's look at that. Same thing. Metal tray or metal clip right here, and they have these little. Oh, look at this. Little tabs right there that kind of lock in and hold them in place. So bottom one, top one, and then you've got these slides up top and on bottom. And these slides, if you paid attention, the ends of these are where the bolts for the caliper went. So the caliper bolts to this slide and the slide on the top, and as you push and it needs to move, it slides on these pins. So if these pins inside here, if this is gunked up and messed up and these pins can't slide like they're supposed to, then one side of the caliper gets hung up, and then you end up getting pads that get stuck in because it can't pull back out, or this side doesn't touch and the other side does, and you get lopsided wear on your pads. That's because these slides get messed up. So next order of business before we do that is I want to go in with a brush, and right where that hardware sits, I want to clean that all up. I want it free of dirt and any buildup or anything like that. Because anything that sits down in between this hardware and this makes this sit a little bit higher, tighter. It can stop the pads from sliding. You want to try to look for and foresee and stop anything that is going to keep the pad from sliding as easy as it should and how it should. So that right there looks pretty good. It doesn't have to look perfect. The pads don't sit on here, but there's no chunks of anything there. And let's flip it over and do, if I can get it in the clamp here. All right, we're gonna clean this up. So, next we'll go slides, one at a time. First we'll start with the bottom, and it really depends on how they look. If we pull it out and it doesn't look bad at all, and there's no corrosion, no rust, no buildup, nothing, and these really do slide pretty well, we'll probably wipe the pin off, not worry about this down in here, and get some new silicone lube on it, and then put it all back together. So let's go ahead and let me zoom in on that. Okay, this is a rubber boot. You can see it kind of flexes and moves, and this is the pin. This boot locks into the head. It just kind of sits down in the groove. Let me make sure I can show you there. You see it pulls away. That's what you want to do, is pull the pin off of the boot. And that does not look too bad. It's a little dirty, but there's no corrosion, there's no rust or anything built up on it, so I'm not going to worry about getting down inside this hole too much. But what I am going to do is I'm going to back you out here just a little bit. I'm going to take this pin, I'm going to clean it off, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't have any start of corrosion or anything on it. And even out here on the head, I hate it right there. All that, we're just going to clean that up. No need to put dirty stuff back together on there. And as you can see, just to be safe, I'm kind of protecting the portion of it that goes into that hole, just so it doesn't get retextured or anything with the brush. So now, right there, pretty good, ready to go. This doesn't look too bad. Clean that off. And we're going to put new lube on this, silicone lube. Now I want to show something, and I really wish I had it readily available. Look at this. Do you see that flat portion? All right? That is how these pins are made. One moment. Okay, so sorry, I thought I could find it real quick and I couldn't, but I want to show you the flat portion. You see it right there? And right there, the flat portion of this is straight. Now, it happens every now and then when someone's going to pull this out that it's got corrosion, it's got a bunch of gunk up in here, and they're cranking on it and pulling and cranking and pulling, and I'm not even joking. I've got a picture of it and I'm going to overlay it on the video. I'll overlay it right now. You see the twist in that bolt? That twist should not be there. Okay, we'll cut back now. That twist happens when it gets seized in here and you're trying to pull it and trying to pull it. You will twist that bolt or that guide pin. And I have seen people try to force those back in, and sometimes you can put them in and sometimes you can't. I've seen people try to hammer them back in there. It doesn't make any sense. If you get one that's corroded, you need to get something like this. Like that is maybe smaller, maybe bigger, whatever the size is. You need to get down in there, you clean it out, use brake clean, get that perfectly clean, every bit of rust and corrosion completely out, cleaned up. A new pin if it's that bad, and then when you put the lube on it and you put the boot back on, everything's going to work just fine. It's going to slide how it's supposed to. Worst case scenario, maybe you have to get a new caliper bracket, which if you have to do that, do that. Don't be afraid to. It will make your brakes last a whole lot longer. Let's grab the lube. So this is a silicone based lubricant, which is what you want to use, and you don't need to go crazy. You just want to give it a good coating, kind of thin it out. It just needs to have enough to cushion it and slide on in there. Let me show you what this is. Ultra disc brake caliper lube. This is what I use. Alright? So then you'll want to take this. Let me get that out of your way there. I'll tell you what. Then you don't want to pull a hole in it, but just pull it out to where you can get to it. There. Because you want to take this and slide it down through there, losing as little as possible. You may have to kind of twist it, and then if you pinch right here, you can push it right up the little ramp to it and right in to that little groove. And then you put it back, the boot back up, it's sealed off, wipe off the excess lubricant, and this pin is nice. It's got no up and down play. It's gonna move in and out nice and easy. Let's flip the caliper over, or bracket over, and do the other one. See, same thing here. Let's just wipe the dust off of it. That boot pulls right off. And that doesn't look too bad either. Just got some old lubricant on it, some grease, or not grease, but you know, hopefully silicone paste. Let's take a look at it. It's got one spot right there. Looks like it's got maybe a little bit of corrosion or rust starting. We'll hit that with the thing, but it's smooth. It doesn't have any texture to it. I'm not too concerned. Apparently what I am not concerned enough about is the fact that I just stabbed myself with the bristles on my brush. No bueno. No, my thumb is bleeding. Okay, so look at all that dust coming off of there. Let me just set that down here so I can keep it in one spot and show you guys. Tell you what, I'm kind of a pansy. That hurt. Okay, so we're going to take some of our lube. We're going to put it on the pin. Get your mind out of the gutter. I know what you were thinking. Alright, so we're going to put it back in, kind of guide it and twist it right all the way till it locks in. What did I tell you about your mind being in the gutter? Alright, there we go. Works. Now, last step. Hardware. Let's go see if we got it. Okay. Oh, what a surprise. So, there's our brake pads. See them? Beautiful things, aren't they? Let's get them out. Beauty of beauties. So here they are. Try to avoid setting them friction side down just so you don't get them contaminated. I had that one set there, but it was in plastic, hopefully, mostly. So all of them have a squealer on them. So here's the thing, no hardware. So what we really need to do is take a nice hard look at this hardware. Only I would say some dumb stuff like that. I'm gonna put this on, and I'm gonna try to scrub it up and with a brush, and I'm gonna see what it looks like. And if I don't like it, I'm getting new hardware. But we'll see. I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance. Okay, I've kind of pushed it over a little so that I can show you guys. We're gonna take a look at this. We're gonna see what we think. We're gonna make a determination. It seems as though it's still performing its function. So I don't know if you can see, but it actually looks like it's cleaned up pretty well. I don't feel any imperfections. It's nice and smooth. It doesn't seem like it catches. It's going to sit down in there. I think we're going to be okay for this one. I'm going to be honest. If you're doing yours, just either get pads that come with hardware or get hardware. It's like $10 for a set of hardware for most vehicles. It's not like just general. It doesn't like one thing fits all vehicles. It's different from one vehicle to the next. But get a set of hardware. Really, you should. This, just because it's cleaned up as well as it did, I think I'm going to go ahead and use it. But don't always count on it being able to do that. All right. So I'm going to flip this over and try to show you the other one. Hopefully, it cleans up just the same. How's that, guys? Here's the hardware. This one looks a little bit worse for the wear. I am not super hopeful. I'm less hopeful about this, actually. Okay. Okay, maybe. Okay, you know, I hate to say it, I think it cleaned up all right. There's a little bit down here, but this doesn't touch the pad or anything. This does right here is where the pad sits. So let's see how the pads fit in this. Let's see how they fit. Let's see how they fit. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of these pads. See, let me show you here. These pads, and I'm not trying to say they're just junk pads, but just the way they're shaped, it's not as crisp of a form, and it's not the first time I've run into issues with trying to put these pads in here, especially these on these trucks and Suburbans, Tahoes, this style of pad. It is not the first time I've run into this, so I hate to do it, but I've got to fix. Every now and then, you've got to make some stuff work. And these pads, I'll be honest, if you use OE pads, you usually never have this problem. I don't think I've ever remember having to do this with OE pads. But you may have to, let me point this down a little. You may have to just adjust this a little. Right here it's hitting there, and some back here still. So that's what I hate cheap pads, all right? If you're gonna do your own brakes, don't go out and get the $15 or $20 pads, all right? Don't be afraid to have to spend 40 or 50 bucks on a set of pads. It's not the end of the world if you do. It's probably better for your vehicle. Because see, here's what happens. If I was someone who didn't care and I just took this, shove it in there, make it fit, throw it back on the vehicle, I could get it on there and it would work, and these brakes would run and they would be okay for a little while. But this would keep it from sliding as easy as it's supposed to. It wouldn't back off quite as easy as it's supposed to. It'd sit up against the rotor, it'd wear out a little faster, it'd wear the rotor out faster. You want to take the time to do yourself or your customer right and get this part right. Do not cheap out on this part. Do not get lazy on this part. If you want to get lazy when you're done and you get home. If you're going to do a job halfway and not make sure it's done right, don't even bother doing it. Let the next guy do it, because they'll make sure it's done right. And if they don't, well, they shouldn't bother to do it either. Closer. You know, this is another point, similar to what I just said. If this hadn't been a cheap set of pads, we could have already been putting this, had this back on the vehicle. We could have already been putting the rotor on. We'd have been on to the fun stuff. But nope, we're stuck here dealing with this stuff. It's the price of cheap pads. A set of good pads would have come with new hardware. It would have fit right. We'd have snapped the new hardware in. We'd have slapped the new pads on. Put a little lubrication in some of the points. And we would have been golden and back on the vehicle. But nope, we're right here doing this because of cheap pads. I'm sorry about my cheap pad rant. I'll carry on. Okay. This side feels a lot better. This side, maybe one more touch. And I'm sorry, hopefully I'll fast forward through a lot of that. Yeah, try to take my finger off with my own file. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I'm better with that. I like it. Would like it better if they just fit that way to begin with, but they didn't. Next pad. Hopefully it's not as bad. Probably will be. They always are. Always are with the cheap pads. Where is it touching? Set this one out of the way. Oh, right there. And there. So that's what I was talking about. That amount of work. Everyone who says, oh, brakes are just the super easiest thing, super quick, 20-30 minutes. It's not that they're not easy, and it's not that they can't be quick, but nobody does that stuff. So if you're doing this work for yourself or for someone else, that's what you need to be doing. That's the job done right. Not slapping new pads on old rotors and not messing with it. Oh, it's good, just ship it. No. You don't deserve to get paid to do that. You do that yourself, you're just doing a disservice to your own vehicle. You do that for a customer, you ain't got no business doing work for people. So, now that we've got the caliper bracket ready, pads fit good, we're going to go back to the vehicle, open the caliper up, put that side back together. Would you look at this fancy thing, huh? Man, it looks like it doesn't have any cosmoline on it at all. I'm guessing that the coating on it is its rust inhibitor, because there's no cosmoline whatsoever on this. There's also no rust. Now, cosmoline, I probably should have explained that, sorry. Cosmoline, did I explain? Anyway, it's just a rust inhibitor. It's kind of like an oily rust inhibitor that they put on rotors because they don't know how long they're going to sit in that box. So, rotor is on. Let's switch your view so you can get a good view of us putting this back together. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take our prepped, properly caliper bracket, slide it over the caliper, and take one bolt. Personally, I like to start with the top bolt, but that's just me. You don't have to. You can start with whatever bolt you want. You can start them both at the same time. I don't care. But to me, if you start the top bolt, then it just kind of hangs in place. You can push the bottom just to line up with where it needs to. And then apparently you can lose the hole. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3/8 ratchet and I'm going to run these down until they're nice and snug. And then I'll use the breaker bar like I broke it loose to torque them down. I don't mean torque them down like to torque spec. I mean torque them down, tighten them down. You know, a lot of this stuff, I know there's torque specs, and I tell you what, I'm a guy who likes torque specs for the most part. Like lug nuts, stuff like that. I advocate the use of torque specs, but for this stuff, you get a feel for it after a while. It may not hurt to start off doing torque specs on everything, but you get a feel for it, for how tight something, a certain size bolt or a certain kind of bolt is supposed to be. And you just know. Alright, man, that's a long bolt, longer than I remember it. There we go. Snug down. Snug down. Now we'll take the little breaker bar and we'll just snuggle it down. To get this little roller chair out of the way. There we go. Now I would show you this, but it'd be the same as when you saw me loosen it. The same place where it was at. Last time I checked, nobody came through and changed the bolt hole locations while we were working on the caliper bracket. I guess I could be wrong. Alright, so push that down. Now, I'm not gonna say anything bad about anybody. Everybody's got their own way, and different things work for different people. If you'll notice, I did not put anything on the hub between the rotor and the hub. There are some people who will put like anti-seize on there to keep it from sticking on there. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying it's horrible. Personally, I won't put anything between the hub and the rotor. They're machined and they're supposed to sit together, and that's just me. I'm not saying that anyone's wrong or horrible or they don't know what they're doing, nothing like that. Everybody's got their own way. Personally, I don't put anything on there, and I've done it that way for years. I've never really had a problem. Every now and then do I get rotors that maybe I had off before and maybe they're hard to get off? Yeah, but sometimes rotors are hard to take off. I would rather have that every now and then than try to put something that wasn't designed to be there between the hub and the rotor. So now, let's get the caliper opened back up. This is what I use. I use this on a lot of stuff. It works for single and dual caliper, or dual piston calipers. Now, I'm going to tell you that by the book, you're supposed to loosen this bleeder and then depress the piston so that any fluid that gets displaced just pushes out this line and into a container. I don't do it. I never have, and I have never, ever had a problem. And I know everybody says, oh, it'll push fluid back up, it gets caught in the ABS unit. I've never seen it, and I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it'll never happen to me. It might happen, and I'm not saying it's not possible. But I'm saying I don't do it. And I just don't. So, here's the caliper. Let's switch your view. Put this down in between the pistons and the outside of the caliper. And there, it kind of center itself up. Now, the one thing I will caution you is I've never seen it happen, but it's one of those things that could happen. I try not to compress one side if I have the other side hanging apart. Right? Or if I don't have it where there's something there to hold it. I try to compress this side before I have that side apart, just because I don't want fluid to get pushed back up. And I know these are split systems, and I know it shouldn't be able to happen, but I'd hate to be sitting here pushing fluid back in and have it pop a piston out of the caliper on the other side. I've never had it happen. I know it shouldn't be able to happen, but here we are. It's just crank this open. All that does is push the pistons back into their bore. Oh, goodness me, oh my. Now you see how the pistons are pushed all the way back in? Now, they'll fit around the thickness. Oh, my goodness, you're all the way up there still. Come back down here. Now that it's opened up, it will fit around the thickness of the new pads and rotor. And so we'll just work it back in place over there. Ugh. What am I missing? There we go. I think that's it. One bolt in the bottom, because the bottom happened to be the one that lined up first, I think. Or is going to be better off to line up first. Alright, so now back to our caliper bolts. We got them started. Trying to hold that bolt still while I thread this bolt into it, or hold that guide pin, slide pin still while I thread the bolt into it. Now, this is what I got the pliers for. because sometimes you have to hold those pins still to get the bolt tightened down all the way. And my pliers are being funky. Alright, so it's very easy. Try not to tear the rubber. Just grab the pliers or grab the metal head of the pin, tighten it down, and then the bottom one. I have a feeling I'm not in anything. Or am I? Or is it just spinning? Is that... I talk to myself apparently, guys. Don't worry. Maybe I'm talking to you. I got an excuse now. Okay. So, we're good. Alright. So, now you know this. Oh my goodness, I kicked you. Sorry, here we go. This is going to slide in and out. It hadn't got far that it's got to move right now, but it's going to slide how it needs to. The pads are going to move in there like they're supposed to because we made sure they fit. The slides aren't going to seize up because we made sure they were cleaned and put fresh lube in them. And the rotor has been replaced. This is a proper brake service, okay? Don't halfway it. If you want to do brakes and do them right, especially if you're getting paid to do them right. Now I know sometimes you kind of got to work with what you got. You know, like in this case, I didn't get new pad hardware, and I really would like new pad hardware. Sometimes that's just not the way it went. Big thing to remember after you do brakes. Get in the vehicle and pump the brake pedal up before you try to drive. I have seen it before. I've seen someone run, hop in a vehicle right after they did brakes, put it down on the ground, hop in the vehicle, throw it in reverse, try to stop as they're going out the building, out, between the lift, out the door behind them, and run straight out the door, out into the street, barely make the turn. Yeah, I mean, almost have a really bad accident because they forgot to pump the brakes up. We just opened this up, and these calipers, they don't move a big distance at a time. That's how they up the pressure from your input. You got a little bitty old input about that big in the master cylinder, or maybe a little bigger, and then you got a big piston back here, and two pistons in this case. They don't move as far. They up the pressure, but they lower the amount of distance that they move. So you've got to make sure you pump the brake pedal up and get a good solid brake pedal before you take this thing driving. Before you put it in gear, you will get somebody killed if you don't pay attention to this. So don't forget that. Let's go ahead and get this wheel back on. Now, as I said, I mentioned to you earlier, these lug nuts are nearly impossible to cross thread because of the design of this lug stud, the way it's got these reduced shanks. So I can take this and I can drop a lug nut is what I can do. I can take this and I can start it spinning and it won't cross thread all the way down. There we go. I just kind of cockeyed the tire there for a second. Where's that lug nut that I dropped? Tell you what, I'm trying to show off and stuff, and here I'm messing up. Okay, and just one across, next, across, next, across, and that's. And as you'll notice, I'm not tightening these down super tight. They are tight. They're snug. They're gonna go on and stay there. But since I still have the other side to do, still have the other side to do. I'm just running these down to make sure that everything's seated and the wheel is on there good. Once I finish the other side, I'll drop this down. I will take a torque wrench and I will torque the lug nuts to specifications. And I think these are like 120. These I'm going to torque to 120. So let's wrap this video up. Well, I think I got dirtier than I was supposed to get today. Heck of a Memorial Day. Anyway, a happy Memorial Day to you guys, though. This isn't going to upload on Memorial Day. But anyway, that's how you do brakes. And as I said before, and I know I ramble sometimes, is if you're going to do this work, don't halfway this work. Do it right. Make sure you do everything to the best of your abilities. And once I've told you, once you've seen the right way to do it, you got no excuse then. Then you already know. You got to do it the right way. Don't take shortcuts. Do it right. Like I said, you want to be lazy? Get it done right and go home and be lazy. That's what I'm probably going to do. Only I'm already home and I don't get to be lazy. Anyway, don't worry. Hey there. Not so fast. I just finished up the outro to this video and I remembered I did not explain one thing that I did. And this is where you have to know your customer and what their driving habits are like and such. If you'll notice, I did not, where the pads sit on the hardware, I did not put any lube. And in many cases, most cases, I will take a little bit of that same lube and just put it on there to help make sure they slide. But in this case, definitely I did not. They're put together dry in the factory and they'll work without any lube, but it doesn't hurt to put lube there. But in this case, if you noticed, when I took this apart, there was dust that fell down off the hubcap. There was dust all over everything, the wheel and that, because these people live on a dirt road. And if you put paste or lube like that on something that's exposed to the outside on a dirt road, it's going to do nothing but turn itself. It's going to pick up all that little particulate, the sand and the dust from the air, and it's going to turn it into like a sandpaper paste. And it's just going to start to eat stuff and wear stuff. That's no good. We don't want to do that. So that's why there's no lube outside there. There's a lot of times I'll put lube. But like I said, most all of these are put together from the factory with no lube in those points. So it doesn't hurt to not put it. It doesn't hurt to put it, but I just want to point out, because I know there's going to be somebody, oh, you didn't lube the hardware. And I get it. You're right. I didn't. But that's why. You guys have a good day. When I put that down, I will torque that wheel. The other side, it's identical. It's just, running through the same motions. Everything's exactly the same. So I'm not going to go through step by step on that. Everything's the same as over here. So I hope that this helps you out. I hope that if you're doing work on this or anything similar, you can figure it out. You can get this work done. Same principles apply. Any place that slides, anything that moves, you want it to move freely and not have anything binding up. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Feel free to check out a couple other videos on the channel. I'll put a couple right here and right here. I think that's where they go. Anyway, and I will see you guys in the next video.